let's go ahead and get started. How about that? We got to go over the results of what happened this past weekend, right? There were 2 challenger events that went down. Last time we talked about this, there were pretty much 6 players who were signed up, who we had like pretty much on our radar, looking at their point finishes. The big one first, you got to talk about what happened in South Africa. And the way that one cracked down was CBM took first place, the John got second place, Book got third. Book on his flu game still got third place. Those are the most important finishes and most relevant ones here. But then you head over to Greece, right? What happened there? Mangja, third place. John Ding, second place. This was a big finish. This one kind of shook up the leaderboard a little bit. Ulsan in first place, not really too relevant. However, I want to also point out KSK in fifth place, King Ray Jr. 7th, Tibetano 7th. So the way the points break down as a result is the leaderboard looks something like this. Now, you'll look at this and see King Ray Jr. in 20th spot, right? First, let me review something with you guys. Just so you guys know, the point leaderboard, this is really important to understand to like kind of get a vision for how the points break down on the tour. For the context of this upcoming event, the last event on the tour, Tiger Uppercut in Thailand, you're going to be looking at the master category and the way this breaks down. You want to keep an eye on it all the way to the bottom. So as far as top 64, you get awarded 15 points, and then it just goes all the way up. That's going to be important to remember for later. You also have to take a look at the leaderboard standings on and how players have broken down in terms of their competitive history this year. This is important to understand. It's an important concept, and I want to make sure you guys understand. So you got to talk about first the idea of point saturation. Because there's only one master event left, and that's going to be in Thailand. And first, you got to talk about why this event is so difficult, why it's so consistently such a big issue, I think, and why it's one of the harder tournaments to compete in and get results in at pretty much every time it's on Tekken World Tour. It's one of the last events, so everyone who's desperate for points is trying to go to that just to be able to lock up, protect, or try to secure their spot, right? The other thing that you have to remember is the way customs work there and immigration, it's an easy access place for a lot of pockets in Asia, Southeast Asia, and in the Middle East region. So what that means is you're going to get a lot of direct flights from people in the Philippines, Japan, Korea. Most importantly, and most, I guess, the recurring theme over the past few years, Pakistan as well. They're going to have easy access to getting to this event, typically, historically anyway. You also have close proximity to a lot of the other powerhouse communities in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and I guess Big Asia, like the players from India, it just becomes a big melting pot event where a lot of the talent shows up. I mean, it makes it difficult to predict, really, is the big thing. It's always a stacked ass tourney. There's always drama. I think like Lohai and Atif last year had the big runs, but then you have players like Tanveer and Dawood. It just gets really messy and really hard to predict. You have to look at this concept, which is point saturation. You look at this, the global leaderboard, your points are created. Your point total is created from your top 4 dojo placements, your top 3 challenger placements, your top 2 master placements, and one of your top master plus placements. Let's say you go to 3 master events. You get first, second, and third place at all of them. You're only going to get the first and second place finishes that add and contribute to your point total. That's important when you look at players like, for example, Shadow, right? So Shadow, he's been to a lot of master events throughout the year, right? But his top 2 placements were 4th place and 9th place respectively. What does that mean going into Thailand? That means in order for Shadow to get any points from going to Thailand, he has to get at least 7th place. What does 7th place offer you in terms of points at a master event? Excellent question, 150 points. So if that offers you 150 points, then how many points could Shadow get if he gets 7th place? Well, 150 minus 20, that 7th place finish would replace the 9th place finish. So he would get 150 instead of 120. Net gain, he would get 30 points added to his total. And once you understand that and you look at the leaderboard, then you can start to get a much clearer picture of just how many people are really in the running for these spots. With the way the leaderboard shook down as a result of the events this past weekend in Greece and South Africa, the leaderboard now looks something like this, with King Ray Jr., who in spite of getting, a 7th place finish this past weekend in Greece, he does nab the 20th spot, but there's a catch there. Lee Mishima from Argentina right now at 1260. Shadow with 1266 right above him. John Ding, because of his 2nd place finish in Greece this past weekend, shot up the leaderboard all the way to 1285 points. And then you have Jod sitting at 1320. Now, in my mind, the points, the way they break down, the leaderboard spots that are most in contention are going to be 17 through 20, with maybe 16 should the stars align. But for the most part, let's focus on 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and even, looking on down to 21st, 22nd, there is not a lot of points of separation between all of these players. I mean, less than 100 separate 17th from 22nd, right? But not all of these players are in the same predicament. And the reason why is what we just went over, point saturation. So let's go, let's look at it one by one, shall we? I also have this tweet. Yeah, this one pulled up. So this is Pete. Pete always makes these leaderboard tweets, and these are really useful, especially this year, because you have to remember, we're not just trying to keep track of the global leaderboard, where 20 players are going to get entry into the final, and they're going to get separated into groups and have to play round robins. We'll get to the finals format a little bit later. It's definitely a departure from what we're used to, and it's interesting. But you also have the addition of the regional leaderboard, which we talked a little bit about last time. And yeah, the way it breaks down is in these respective regions, where through dojo events and other events, these players accumulated points and have a leaderboard separate from the global leaderboard. However, if the player who ranked the top in their respective region is qualified through those top 20 spots, then that spot is handed down. We reviewed this last time, right? Looking at the Japan region was really interesting because Chikarin, Nobi, Rangchu, and one more person, Double, because those 4 players are at the top of the leaderboard in the Japan region, but they're also qualified in the global standings, that spot goes all the way down to the 5th place regional ranker, Shonen. And it's really interesting, actually, the way this worked out, because KSK right now is in 2nd place on that regional leaderboard below Shonen. And one reason, maybe if we can fanfic a little bit, we had to run a Red Bull Golden Letters qualifier, and it worked out to where we had to run the qualifier the same weekend as the EWC LCQ. So all the players that were trying to pursue a spot at the LCQ had to abandon this one dojo event that ended up getting Shonen 70 points. He shot up past several players into this 5th place spot. So now he comfortably kind of has this regional spot. And this is mostly a lock at this point. It effectively is a lock. Despite the potential for maybe some things to shake down with the global leaderboard. Maybe some people fall out, so then they would take the spot if they are on the higher ranking spot. But yeah, so Spag, you get it, right? Like, man, the decision to go to the LCQ for some of these players cost them a spot on even the regional leaderboard. So it turned out to be a really crazy kind of chance weekend. So like we said, right? This bubble is starting to develop between, in my mind, I'm going to say from 16 on down, but really let's just focus for right now on John Ding, Shadow, Lee Mishima, King Ray Jr., this 1285 all the way down to 1215 point cluster, with KSK right now out by only 20 points and Farzine out by, 35. However, there is nuance to this. So this is an expanded shot of this leaderboard with some details. So let's review this. What you have to understand is that, again, each player, even though they might be close in points on the leaderboard, they're not necessarily all in the same position. Right now, King Ray Jr. has the 20th spot, but really this kind of is a big asterisk. And the reason why, let's go down the leaderboard, right? So starting with Jod. Jod right now has point saturation on the master level, but only at 33rd place. So that means anything above 32nd place at Thailand, assuming he just is able to just get even top 32, he's going to come up plus on points. And because Jod is pretty close to low-high too, that's going to be important. You're going to have to keep a loose eye on how low-high and Jod progress through the brackets, because they're very close on points as well. You can see 1340 and 1320. So maybe, maybe something crazy happens and low-high takes an early bow out, but Jod actually makes it further. He has the potential to be able to pass up low-high. And even if it doesn't have leaderboard shift implications, it could make a difference in terms of pool seeding, right, when it comes to the final. But anyway, this is where you want to pay attention. John Ding right now has 1,285 points. He had a really good performance this weekend. Of course, did what he had to do in Greece, right? Got 2nd place, shot up the leaderboard. However, his ability to get any more points is going to be difficult. Why? Take a look at his profile here. But with 1285 points, look at his master events. A 2nd place and a 4th place finish. That means he has to get 3rd place to get like 80 points. This is one of the hardest events of the year, and he has to get 3rd place to get anything. And even then, you know, an 80-point jump for that, you know, 3rd place, that's a lot of work for the juice. It's a little bit of juice, but he's gonna have to squeeze really hard. You know what I mean? So you got to take a look at how John Ding progresses through the bracket here, how his path looks, and being able to even just get in the top 8. That's not enough. He has to really get like 3rd place, 2nd place to get some significant return from this event. That's important because when you compare him to the players below him, Shadow right now is in an interesting spot because he's pretty much on the chopping block. He's the real player who's on the chopping block in my eyes. And I'll show you, we'll get to why in just a moment. But for right now, you have to look at he's saturated at a 9th place minimum, which means he has to break top 8 to make any significant point gain. It's going to start with just plus 30 points if he can guarantee himself a spot in the top 8. But obviously, as he goes higher and higher through that, you'll get even more. But he has to get top 8 to get anything. And it's going to be important. Pretty much the pressure is on him at this point. He kind of has to make a jump just to be able to protect himself. Because the way this looks is, you might feel comfortable, but actually Shadow is probably the player in the 20th spot in actuality. And given what we just saw with John Ding, if John Ding gets less than 3rd place, if he gets 4th place in this event, and Shadow gets even just top 8, it could be 7th place, he'll go over John Ding, and John Ding is the player now on the chopping block. So between those two players, they can kind of they might end up switching that player who gets booted, you know, at the last position that gets booted out. But now we're gonna get to the real reason why King Ray Jr., it's got to be a nervous feeling, but the truth is he's not this 20th spot. Lee Mishima from Argentina, who is, I believe, planning to travel to this event. That's a long trip. However, what you have to understand about Lee Mishima is that he only had one Masters event performance and he won it, which means he's unsaturated on Masters point. Everything he gets at this event is his. So if he gets even top 32, if he gets top 6, top 48, top 32, top 24, whatever, he's going to get raw points for that. And given how tight this race is, he pretty much has an easy shot at being able to get over Shadow if Shadow doesn't get a top 8 finish at least. So Lee Mishima already has significant jump potential to where if he just shows up, as long as he makes his flight, as long as he checks in on time, doesn't get DQ'd, he has a pretty good shot at being able to secure his spot, so to speak. King Ray Jr. right now is at 1250, but the big thing is he's gotten a lot of his points from Masters events. He's saturated at 5th place minimum, which means he has to get at least 4th place to get anything. You got to get 4th place at the hardest tournament one of the hardest tournaments of the year to be able to kind of get any kind of point jump here, and that's going to be tough by itself. But the other thing is, looking at KSK is also just, he's only 20 points away, right? But for KSK, he's saturated at a 7th place minimum, which means he has to get 5th place to get any point gain. So KSK in a similar position to someone like Shadow, where they have to have a really good tournament to really get anything. But this is where you want to pay attention. Farzin right now is sitting at the 22nd spot with 1215 points. He's only 35 points off of 1250 from King Ray Jr., right? However, he, like Lee Mishima, is unsaturated on Masters events, which means anything he gets is his. So if Farzin shows up, if he gets on the flight, gets through customs, is able to check into the tournament on time, shows up and gets top 32 raw point return, and he's gonna shoot up, I think if he gets top 32, he gets plus 50 points, he immediately goes over King Ray Jr., and King Ray Jr.'s out. Between the combination of Lee Mishima and Farzin, the way you want to think about it, if Farzin and Lee Mishima show up, they check in, it's really Shadow on the chopping block. Anything can happen in pools, mind you. This is that kind of event. And like we said before, right, with Farzin, if he's able to shoot up into the top 20, that puts Numan now into the Pakistani regional slot. So you have to imagine that he's watching from assuming that they don't even go, right? He's got to be hoping that Farzin is able to at least just make his flight, check in, and everything like that. So because of Lee Mishima and Farzin, there's a high likelihood that it sets up the leaderboard to where they're both going to shoot up presumably over the 1266 point threshold, which will shift down Shadow and boot out King Ray Jr. right now. So North America is it's gonna be tough. This is gonna have like the stars are gonna have to align for both of them to make it like this. You then scroll down and you take a look at Book. Book also, of course, he had like the flute tournament this past weekend. He got 3rd place. A 2nd place finish would have really helped him, but with 1180 points, he's saturated at a 9th place minimum, which means, like some of the other players, he needs to get top 8 to get any points. Realistically, he probably is going to need 3rd place or higher at this event to be able to penetrate top 20 and be able to get over that 1300 threshold. The John in a similar position, saturated at 7th place minimum, he likely is going to need 3rd place to get him over 1300 points. Fear, I don't think has plans to travel to this event, and he's going to be probably taking the regional spot at the final. Tetsu, it was saturated on challenger events, which made the tournament in Greece, Clash of the Olympians, a really, really tough challenge for him. However, he's saturated at a 13th place minimum here, which means if he gets top 9, he'll get some points. However, at 1,035 as his point total, he's going to need at least 2nd place to get him over the 1,300 point threshold. And even then, you have to remember, depending on the results, the 1,300 point line, that really might be 1,320. That really might be 1,340, depending on how things shake down here. But 1,300, you got to imagine, is at least like the lowest bar to kind of aim for, looking at it from a bird's eye view like this. Yagami, the Australian sensation, probably had the subject of one of the best, probably the best Tekken 8 set to date. I think we can kind of put that one on it. He's at 920 points. He is unsaturated on Masters performances, of course, with his big one being at Battle Arena Melbourne in his home turf. But because he's this far out, he's going to need at least a 2nd place finish here to get over 1,300 points. So you can see there's a few key placements that quite a few of these players are aiming for, whether it be 2nd place finishes, 3rd place finishes, or 4th place finishes. The key takeaway here is the players that qualify for top 8, the players that make it to 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, all matters here in Thailand next weekend. Noel, I don't believe has travel plans. This is another player who, in theory, could make a significant jump there, but I believe Noel is also qualified on the regional leaderboard. Mangja and Tibetano, while technically still in the mix here, they pretty much need to win to get 410 points added to their total and hit the 1280 and 1290 marks. They're going to need a lot of luck. They pretty much have to win and then have to be really lucky with how the rest of these players shake down in terms of placement. And it's looking rough. I would say these two they need to win. They need to win Thailand, and you're dependent on some other factors as well. It's kind of in a situation where like they don't control their own destiny. They have to win, and they still don't control their own destiny. It's dependent on the John not making this place. It's dependent on Farzine has to like not make top 32, that kind of stuff. So this is a kind of bird's eye view of what each player is kind of aiming to achieve to be able to try to shoot up the leaderboard, get into this competitive cluster here under 1320 points, I'd say. Where that needle is going to end up is going to depend on, like I said, the player placements from top 8, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, and who wins, of course. Is that clear? Do you guys understand? I know that the system is a little bit more convoluted, a little bit more complex this year compared to previous years, but it's because of the addition of the regional leaderboard, but also the finals format, which we'll go over shortly. But the theme here is you cannot take your eyes off of Thailand and who shoots up in terms of results at this event. You basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, 13. You effectively have 13 players competing for 5 spots. And that's really what we're looking at. Who's gonna end up there is hard to tell. I know King Ray Jr. is trying to get another flight out to Thailand and hopefully get a 4th place finish or something to protect himself. It's gonna be rough, but I get it. When you put in that much work to get here and it's not looking good like that, right? I get it. But that's the kind of player watch going into Thailand that you want to be paying attention to. But like I said, the next topic that you kind of have to focus on is the final, which is an interesting one because this is a really, really different format compared to what we're used to. I still, to be honest with you, don't quite know what to make of it. I think there are feelings about it. It's definitely strange and a little bit more convoluted. So the global leaderboard will take the top 20 players that qualify through the point totals there, right? And those players will go into their groups. 5 players in 4 groups are going to play round robin, just like what we've been used to with the Tekken World Tour format. 2 players will emerge from each group, the top 2, into a final 8-man group, and they'll be placed on the winner's side side of a 16-man bracket on day 4, the winner's side. So if you qualify through the global leaderboard and you qualify through your group, you get winner's side advantage in the final bracket. However, if you are one of the players that qualify on the regional leaderboard, you're going to be split into 3 groups, with the top 2 players in those groups proceeding to the loser side of the bracket on the final, which means there are 2 spots open for the LCQ. However, the LCQ has a different environment. What do you say? Like different. It's a little bit different this year. So players that are eliminated from these 2 round robin groups are actually allowed to enter this double elimination LCQ. So think about it. All the 35 players here, you're gonna have to fight them, the leftovers from their little group or round robin groups. You're gonna have to fight the scraps to get those last 2 spots to then go in the loser's side of a final bracket. So you have, let's just say you're going into the LCQ, right? You got a double elimination LCQ so that you're then put into the loser side of a double elimination bracket. Somebody in here this is a triple elimination tournament. We're developing new kinds of tournament formats here. I mean, it's incredible. It's definitely a little bit more involved compared to what we're used to in terms of finals format and presentation of it. This is going to be, I think, for the talent that are going to be at the final, I look forward to hearing them try to explain this to viewers. It is definitely way more involved and probably a little bit more complex and convoluted than it should be, I think. Moral of the story is you're going to end up with a 16-man bracket that's separating the winners and losers side advantages based on how you qualify. So that's what you're looking at for the Tekken World Tour final. And the last event, of course, Tiger Uppercut going into it. That's the bird's eye view of what's going on. And hopefully you guys understood that. That was a lot. But hopefully you guys get it and hopefully you guys tune in. I know Thailand, it's usually fireworks, man. It's usually a really, really competitive event and one of the toughest events on tour calendar for the year. Not even just for Tekken, honestly. Some dreams are made and some dreams are destroyed, and it's that kind of event. So make sure you guys tune in to not only Red Bull Golden Letters this upcoming weekend, which is going down in London, but make sure you guys tune into Tiger Uppercut the weekend after that in 2 weekends, 10 days or something. And then again, looking ahead to the Tekken World Tour final, the first Tekken 8 Tekken World Tour final. I have no idea how this 4-day format with this, I have no idea how this is going to shake down, but whatever, man. Let's buckle up and enjoy it as best we can. But that's it for this edition of Sports Center, this Tekken World Tour talk. Make sure you guys, if there was something you didn't understand about it, or maybe there's something you like about this format, or is the points chase too confusing or something, let me know just what y'all think about all this stuff in the comments below, and I'll holler at you guys later. Everybody be easy.